I want to welcome everyone, our distinguished guests. Thank you for coming from far and near to be with us today. Family members, parts of the regime that helped build the state of Tennessee and supported the development and growth of Motlow State Community College, as well as putting in the right kind of public policy that allows us to do things that we have done here and elsewhere. Jerry Cooper. I woke up on Monday or Tuesday. Sally, Pack, where are you? Was it Monday or Tuesday I called you? Tuesday, okay. Sometimes people get early phone calls from me, and I'm thankful that they answer. But I called Sally and I said, I woke up with your daddy on my heart this morning. And I said, man, I don't know all the stories, but he has done some wonderful things in the time that I knew him. And on the ground that we're walking on, that you're sitting on, you're eating on today, this is Jerry Cooper. He made this happen. Jerry was and is a legend. So all you young folks, your Tennessee history, you should read about him in your books as you go through school. He was important in making things happen. More importantly, did you know that Jerry Cooper is the catalyst of campuses like this called satellite campuses across the state of Tennessee? He was the first one to galvanize his colleagues to make this happen. So to the Cooper family, thank y'all. To Jerry, I know you're watching because we wouldn't have a day like this. As Senator Bowling said, he would have fun days, and this is a beautiful, fun day weather that we're having, and it's because of him. The last thing I'll leave you with is, I was talking to Andy briefly, and I always talk about the amount of mileage that I put on cars over the last several years with our team. And so when I came to Motlow, Jerry supported me from day one. And not just the work, but the connecting with people. So I talked to him about, well, Jerry, I came and I had 212,000 miles on this car. In a year and a half, I've got over 400,000. He's like, well, I think you need a helicopter. Look at me. I am an Air Force veteran, but I can promise you, I am not getting in a helicopter. Right? But the point is that he looked for a solution to what he considered to be a challenge without me asking for it. And I think that everybody in this room that knew him and knew him well knew that you just needed to mention what you wanted to get accomplished, and he was going to help you get that done. So he spoke to Andy and actually called him and said, hey, Andy, I need a helicopter. And so Andy was on the other end of the phone. I'm sure I can imagine what Andy's face looked like, and I don't know what time of day it was. But Andy said, Jerry, you need what? I need a helicopter. He said, well, I know somebody that can help you, but do you need to use the helicopter or you need a helicopter? He said, well, if UT has a helicopter, why can't Motlow have a helicopter? That's the type of person he was, he is. That's what we're going to remember. That's what we take with us every day when you think about him, or he pops up in the middle of some familiar thing that he said to you, or that you engaged with him or experienced with him. That's what you remember. So Andy, thank you for sharing that story with me about the helicopter. I would love to have a helicopter, but I don't think I'm getting one. Again, I can't thank you all enough for coming to celebrate this special day with us. To the Motlow team, I want to thank you all for setting this all up. Brian, Steve, the rest of the group, I can see you somewhere in Purview. We appreciate you getting this set up so it's a great day for us. And those who are helping serve, thank you for your servant leadership. Everyone, you're always welcome here. I want you to know that. You're always welcome here. Morning, noon, and night, just not when the doors are locked, okay? Thank y'all for coming, and I want to introduce my friend, my supporter, in some ways my mentor, Mr. Gary Morgan, to get us started off today and MC these proceedings. Thank you all.
Well, hello everybody. I'm just trying to think how Jerry Cooper would probably started this, and but I did tell Sally something out front when I first got here. You know, I woke up last night about 3 o'clock and just rolling over thinking about, we got to do this thing tomorrow. We got to get it done right. And so finally I went back to sleep, and as fate would have it, I had a dream. And guess who walked into my dream? It was this Jerry Wayne Cooper was his name. And he looked me right in the eye. And so any of y'all that's ever had a conversation with Jerry Cooper and had to try to get something done, this is exactly what Jerry Cooper said. He looked me right in the eye and said, "Gary Morgan, don't you screw this thing up." "Oh no, Jerry, I won't. I'm here. I'm gonna do it right." And I think he liked that because he walked away. I didn't have to put up with him anymore. So, but anyway, Jerry Cooper has been my friend forever, and I mean, we've been down a lot of roads and back several times. I was just talking with Melinda this morning. I first met Jerry Cooper in 1973 when David Moore, who is here in the building with us, David and I had just got into Jaycees here in McMinnville together, and he brought this gentleman named Jerry Cooper to a JC meeting, and he sat there with David and I. And you know, the first time you have a conversation with Jerry Cooper, you're going to get a smile on your face. And so we sat there when the meeting was over. We said, "Jerry, you going to join us?" And he said, "Yeah, he joined us." So he got involved in JCs, and you know, Jerry don't get involved in anything that he don't give it everything he's got. And he gave that everything he's got. So, and he helped me so much. Jerry went on to be president of the Tennessee Jaycees, and I was very honored to get to do that. But the reason I got to do that was because I had Jerry Cooper right there with me, helping me along the way. So he's just meant so much to me, and so I got to tell this one little story about Jerry trying to get prepared to run for state senate. He used to call me back the year I was state president. He said, "Gary, I think I'm going to run for senate. What do you think about that?" I said, "Well, Jerry, if that's what you want to do, you ought to do it." And he said, "Okay, I'm thinking about it." And then one night he called me at home. He said, "Gary, I need you to do something for me." And I said, "What is it?" He said, he gave me about 5 names of people. He said, "I want you to call these people and ask them if they think it's a good time for me to run for senate." And I said, "Well, Jerry, I'll do it." And he said, "And I'm going to get back with you tomorrow night. And I want you to tell me exactly what they said. Don't sugarcoat it." I said, "Okay, Jerry, we'll do it." So I made the phone calls, and he called me the next night. He said, "Well, Jerry, what'd you find out?" I said, "Well, Jerry, this is what I heard." This was kind of a common thing. You know, maybe this is not the best time for you to be running. You know, Senator Krause has been there 30 years, and he just ran 2 years ago against Pedro Paz, a very popular coach here in McMinnville. And he just, you know, he beat Pedro, but he was very close. They said maybe if Jerry would just wait, maybe Ernest won't run in 2 years from now. And so Jerry won't have to have all that. And I said, "Well, Jerry, that's what I found out." And he said, "Well, I appreciate it, Gary. So I'll talk to you later." So he called me the first thing the next morning. He said, "I have been awake all night trying to decide what I'm going to do." He said, "I'm going to run for state senator, Gary. What do you think?" I said, "Jerry, I've told you all along, if that's what you want, better go do it." And he said, "I'm going to." And he said, "What are you going to be doing today?" And just so happened I was going to Nashville that day. He said, "Can you meet me at Manchester at 4 o'clock this afternoon?" I said, "I sure can, Jerry." So I went up to Nashville, and I came back. I met him at the Cracker Barrel parking lot and got there in the car when he said, "Here's what I want to talk to you about, Gary." He said, "In just a few minutes, we're going to go over to Pat and Stanley's, his brother-in-law and sister, and I want to tell them." And I said, "Well, that's probably a good thing to tell. Let's tell some people, Jerry." He said, "That's what I'm going to do." And then he said, "But Gary, I need you to commit to me right now that you'll be my campaign manager and be with me right down the road." I said, "Well, Jerry, I'll do that for you, but I think there's somebody out there who could do a whole lot better job than me we could go find." He said, "No, Gary." He said, "I feel comfortable with you. You've worked in radio. You've just finished a year of president of the Jaycees. You're who I want. Will you do it or will you not?" I said, "Well, yes, Jerry, if that's what you want, I'll do it." And he said, "I want to let you know this. I'll pay you." I said, "Well, Jerry, how are you going to pay me?" He said, "Out of my campaign account." I said, "I didn't know you had a campaign account." He said, "Well, we will." I said, "Well, that's good." And then he threw the real stuff on me. He said, "I want you so bad. Let me tell you what I'm going to do, Gary. I'm going to pay you 50 cents an hour." But he said, "Wait a minute, I'll give you all the hours you want." And so the one thing that was true about that, I got all the hours I wanted. I mean, Jerry Cooper was used to getting up and being at work at 5:30 in the morning at Cooper Manufacturing. And Gary Morgan wasn't that spunky, but I mean, we'd leave out 5:30 in the morning and get back 7 or 8 o'clock that night. And I was getting 50 cents an hour. And I said, "Lord, have mercy, Jerry." But anyway, it was a great adventure. We had so much fun, and you know, we got along well. We wore each other out. But I tell you something that was just really impressive about Jerry. When we'd be out campaigning or something, if somebody would bring up some issue that he had some concern about, as soon as we got in the car and started home, he wanted to talk about it. He said, how is the best way for me to respond to that? And he said, do we need to do a radio commercial and respond to it? I said, well, Jerry, just whatever you think. You just keep working. And Jerry Cooper was a campaigner now. He would get out there and shake hands and talk to people and just keep it going. It was just great to be out there with him every day, too, because he was like my brother. I had a brother, but he was my brother. And we talk all the time, and I miss so much those meetings. Jerry used to call me. He had a little something on his mind. He said, Gary, we need to get together and talk. I said, okay, Jerry, I'll be up at your house about 4. And so I drive up there. We'd sit in the same place every time. He had his little chair. He sat over here, and I had to sit over here at the end of the couch. And we solved the world's problems, y'all. I promise you. I mean, we bring them up, and we talk about it till we got them solved. And so that's exactly what we did. So it was a lifetime experience for me and for him too. And you know what was so amazing? Jerry got elected in August of 1994, and he made his way down to Nashville. And for some reason, Jerry Cooper became an instant hit down there. Everybody just liked him. And a lot of people say, how was it that Jerry got so much support from folks so early on? And you know, the answer I'd give them, the reason he did, a lot of them are sitting here today because they were down there and they took him under their wings. And let me just tell you a little bit about it. John Morgan at that point in time was working for Bill Snodgrass. He was his executive assistant to the comptroller, and my friend Steve Adams was here. He was the executive assistant to Harlan Matthews, the state treasurer, and then Pat Miller is here. Pat Miller was the executive assistant to John Wilder, and that was a big job. But Pat did it good. But they all was there to always advise Jerry and lead Jerry along, and they just told him what he needed to do. And I was more fortunate that I got a position. I was working for Gentry Crowell at that time, Secretary of State, and I really didn't know that the constitutional officers for the state of Tennessee had so much clout and so much power. But I learned real quick Gentry Crowell's nickname was the Godfather, so he was the guy. And but anyway, we just took off then and started campaigning and doing all this stuff. And Jerry just kept going, and he was just so great. So after he'd been down there about a week or so, he called me with those Jerry Cooper calls. He said, Gary, I need you to drive me to Nashville. I've got to go down and meet with Governor John Wilder. I said, okay, Jerry, I'll be glad to do that. And so I took him, and as fate would have it, we went down I-24, and I was driving too fast. And the state trooper stopped us and come up there, walked up to the car, and Jerry just reached over behind his seat and showed him his license tag, and he was a senator. And that state trooper said, well, glad to meet you, Senator, but he said, that don't give you the opportunity to speed up and down the highway. And what was Jerry Cooper's answer? I wasn't driving, he was. Thank you, Jerry, you hung in there with me. I appreciate it. Just keep on hanging in there with me, and I'll just keep on doing these things. But anyway, we got to Nashville, and we got to go in and see Lieutenant Governor Wilder, and he was in the Legislative Plaza at the time. And when you walk in the back of those offices, it was like walking into a cave. And so we walked back through there real dark, and Governor Wilder was sitting there behind his desk. He had a lamp there right beside me. He had to look around there to talk to him. But I told Jerry, I said, Jerry, I'm just going to ease back out here in the lobby. Just come get me when you're ready. So I went out there and sat, and I thought, my goodness, he must have been in there for a good hour or so. And finally, here comes Jerry out, and I was looking at him, and I thought all the blood had run out of Jerry's face. I said, what is wrong with him? I've never seen him look so lost. And he sat down there beside me, and I never forget this. He looked me in the eye and said, Gary, what have I got myself into? I said, I don't know, Jerry, but let's get at it. So Governor Wilder, he made a real impression on him that very first day. And so he went on to, but then after he got to meet Governor Wilder, he went back down there. Of course, Governor McWhorter was in office at the time, and I don't know if it was Pat or Steve, who it was, got Jerry cornered up and said, Jerry, what do you want to do now that you're senator? He said, I want to make sure that the rural counties in my district have what it takes to be successful. And that's what I want. And they told him, I said, Jerry, here's some things you need to be thinking about. If you want your counties to be successful, number one, they got to have good roads. They got to be able to get products in and products out. And the other thing is we got to have some education facilities. We got to be able to train our workforce. That's the two things that needs to be priorities to you. And let me tell you something. You talking about priorities. Those were priorities to Jerry Cooper. Frank Glass would know this. I think Jerry Cooper slept with Motlow flags at night or something. That's all he could think about was Motlow, Motlow, Motlow. And every chance he got, he was there to find out about that. Dale Sims is here. He was the vice president for finance at the Board of Regents. I bet you Jerry called him 3 or 4 times a week just to see how things were going. But anyway, finally it just kept on and kept on, and he never stopped. And finally, the big go-ahead came along that we was going to have a Motlow College right here. And you talking about a tickle, Jerry Cooper. And I don't know who did this, but he had worked so much at that point in time, and his office was there in Legislative Plaza too. Somebody painted this picture and brought it in there, put it in there for him. And this is something I asked Sally about. It was like a cheerleader, and she was in her Motlow cheerleading outfit, and it was beautiful. And they put it in there in his office, but it said Cooper College, not Motlow, it's Cooper College. So he proud. He had him a college now, and everything was just working so well. And Jerry came back, and I tell you something, he went to work on the road situation too. And it's not like Jerry Cooper did everything about roads, but he was the one that got it started. And he was another funny thing about him, he got up early. He would go to the commissioner of transportation. He would be at his office at 5:30 in the morning. And the commissioner probably thought, why in the world are you doing here? But Jerry wanted to know all these roads. Where are we at? How's this project going? Is it in schedule? And he would go 2 or 3 times a week to find out. And they knew that Cook was there. And we used to joke him here, McMinnville, about Jerry, wherever you go, it rains asphalt. If you'll just stop, y'all like me that was raised here in Warren County, I remember when we didn't have a 4-lane road anywhere here. But with Cooper's persistence and his just keep on digging, we got a 4-lane that takes us down to I-24 now, which has been very helpful and probably was one of the main reasons we was able to recruit Bridgestone here with that road. And then we went forever going towards Sparta and never had a 4-lane road. And I know Ivy and some of them worked on it, but Jerry just got dug into that thing too, and he just aggravated everybody to death. They finally said, okay, we'll do it if you'll leave. And that's kind of the way it was. But to make a long story short, if you leave here right now and get on this 4-lane road, you can go to I-40 that way. Again, and I just wonder, I've thought about how many people's lives maybe have been saved because we've had such a good road system when you're having to travel up and down the roads. So, but anyway, that was Jerry's thing. He was going to get it done, and he certainly did get it done. And he worked on it constantly. And once we got to Motlow here in McMinnville, and Frank Glass, I think, was saying, thank goodness, I don't have to put up with him as much. But anyway, we had a Motlow College here in McMinnville for about 10 days, I think it was, and Jerry Mansfield showed up. He said, hey, if y'all could have one of these in McMinnville, why can't we have one in Fayetteville? And what would Jerry Cooper say? Well, I don't know. Let's check on it. So he was back at it again. He was going to get a campus in Fayetteville. And I forget exactly how long he worked on that one, but it happened and everything went great. And Mansfield was tickled. So Motlow College was just branching out and going and blowing. And I tell you something, I think Motlow College set the standards. I think it was the first community college to start having these satellite offices at that point in time. But I mean, after McMinnville, then came Fayetteville, and then Frank Glass riding up down the interstate looking for signs where we could have classes in Smyrna. All of a sudden, Smyrna was our next big deal. And if y'all have not been down to our Smyrna campus, it's right off the Sam Ridley Highway, about 3 miles from the interstate. That is a beautiful place, and it's growing like crazy. Dr. Torrance, I'm right. I think Motlow College is the fastest growing community college in the state of Tennessee. And a big part of that is all that took place down there in Smyrna. And it was because Jerry Cooper just would not give up on getting a college right here in McMinnville. And from here, it just kind of hopped around. And I would have to say, too, since then, and this has been under Dr. Torrance, we don't have a campus up in Sparta, Tennessee, but we have got a teaching side up there, and they've got a committee set up of folks that just have worked tirelessly to make sure kids can take classes in Motlow there in Sparta. And but because of Jim Payne, we've had 2 fundraisers up there. We've had a golf tournament, Jim, 3 years, and it's made good money. All that money's raised goes towards the teaching center to try to keep expanding that there in Sparta. Now this year, they're having a second one. It's going to be 2 weeks in it, Jim?
It's going to be October 24th.
That's right. It's going to be the second fundraiser of the year there, and it's going to be a fun thing. It's being sponsored by First National Bank. The golf tournament was sponsored by Citizens Bank, and again, that's a big part of that was Jim Payne working on that. And I do see Paul is here today, Cheryl. He has served on that committee in Sparta and seen it grow and stuff, and they won't slow down, Paul. They'll be hollering at you, so it's just you're doing great. So I say all this to say this. If you knew Jerry Cooper, if he got something on his mind that he wanted to do, you better get out of his way because he's going to go do it. And so that's just how he was. So thank y'all so much for being here. I guess I got talking to Brenda Cannon about this a year and a half ago. I had the honor to get to serve as chairman of the Board of Trustees here in Motlow for a couple of years. And my term ended this summer. And 18 months ago, I said, before I'm not chairman anymore, I want us to have something for Jerry Cooper. And the Board of Trustees passed a resolution honoring him. And Brenda is going to read that to you in a little while, and we'll have some copies for the kids. But anyway, I forgot that's like Jerry. I forgot what I was going to say next. But anyway, I came with this idea. Why don't we have Jerry Cooper Day at McMinnville, or Jerry Cooper Day at Motlow? And I thought, now I wonder how this is going to go over. And I asked Dr. Torrance what he thought. He said, Gary, I don't have any problem with that. Can you work on it? I said, yes, sir. I'll start today. And I tell you, the folks at Motlow have been excellent at helping us make this happen. And this is so great. For me, it's for the kids. They get to hear these stories about their daddy and all he did for Motlow College and for the state of Tennessee. We just all loved him and we appreciated him. So thank y'all so much for being here. I'm going to kind of move along. We got a lot of speakers here today, and most of them, like I say, have known Jerry since the first day he got there. And if anybody that knew Jerry Cooper, he was a prankster. He loved to play tricks on people constantly. And so I've told all of our speakers, if y'all would, just think of your very best Jerry Cooper memory and try to share that with us. Take 4 or 5 minutes and tell us your Cooper memory. So that's what we're going to have today. So I hope there's a lot of laughter, and maybe there'll be a little crying. I'm not sure. But I'm not going to cry. I'm going to laugh. But anyway, I've got another group of people I'd like to introduce you to right now. These are the greatest people in the world. And the first one, I am so honored to get to introduce her today because this is the first time I've ever got to introduce her like this. Dr. Elisa Cooper Luna is here, Jerry's oldest daughter. She's wonderful. Elisa, it means so much for you to be here today. And your daddy is smiling, I promise you. And then we got Miss Sally Cooper Pack, and she's a Motlodian herself. She's been here for a good long while. But thank you, Sally, for being here. And last but not least is Faith Cooper Mcgee. Thank you, Faith. You're just ready. Glad to have you here. And I know all you guys out there are saying, how in the world can Jerry Cooper have 3 daughters that are that pretty? And I said, oh, let me tell you why. Let me introduce one other person. It's his beautiful wife, Melinda. This is one of those girls. Melinda, stand up there for a second. That's why it happened. And thank you, Melinda, Brittany. Girls, thank y'all for being here. We appreciate it. We hope y'all enjoy this so much, and we'll just move on from here. So I would also like to just let you know that.
Make sure you introduce Holly.
Oh, excuse me, Holly. I'm sorry. Jerry's stepdaughter is here, Holly Bushart. I said it right, didn't I, Holly? Thank you so much. Jerry thought the world of you, too. And so thank you for being here and supporting us. And the other thing I would like to mention is all the people that served as president at Motlow while Jerry Cooper was state senator. And it would go back to Dr. Sam Ingram and Dr. Frank Glass, Dr. Walker and Dr. Mary Lou Apple. Her mother is turning 93 this weekend, and she's up there celebrating her birthday with it. I said, I certainly understand that. And then Dr. Michael Torrance has shown up, and he's just made the world great down here at Motlow. So thank you. Thank all of you presidents. We really appreciate that. And maybe we'll hear a few comments from them as we move along here. But right now, if we could get Frank Glass to come up and tell us his Jerry Cooper story. And I would like to say about Frank Glass, he hired me back in 1988, and I don't think he regretted it, but he did. Dr. Glass, please come on up.
I'm not sure where to start after that. I think a couple hours ago, my wife Kathy said, Gary Morgan took on one heck of a job to do this. And I would ask each of you to join me in thanking him for organizing this. The second thing, the ones of us who have the opportunity to hire people want to find the best people they can find, the good fit for the organization. And many times you are successful in hiring people, and occasionally you make mistakes. Gary Morgan did one heck of a job for Motlow College, and I appreciate what he did. Some of the things I had down have already been said, but basically, this campus, where we are now, to me, is a Cooper Center, not McMinnville Center. He worked so hard, raising money, getting friends. We needed an expansion of the parking lot. He got that done. Whatever we needed, Jerry got it done. On the Moore County campus, the Markham Technology Building I'm not sure it would have ever been built without Jerry's support. And another thing, the entrance to the college off Highway 55, we had several accidents there, had a student that was killed there, and I talked with Jerry about it, and he got Department of Transportation come down and improve that entrance to the college. McMinnville has already been mentioned. Smyrna, his fingerprints are all over Motlow College and the people like me. He and I were talking about a helicopter for Dr. Torrance. He used to give me help. We both love to watch MASH. For the older ones here, MASH was a Korean helicopter movie. And many years ago, he used to fly a helicopter. And he would call me, I promise you, once a month. Because when you see it coming, when you saw the show coming on, it looked like the helicopters were flying backwards. And he said, Glass, is that helicopter flying backwards? I said, Senator, no, they don't fly backwards. Okay. I was in the yard working. A month later, he called me again. He said, Glass, you sure the helicopter doesn't fly backwards? He would never believe me. He thought you could fly backwards with a helicopter. Jerry was a friend of Motlow College. He was a friend of mine, and I miss him. Thank you very much.
Let me read my notes here because I can't mess this thing up. He's watching me. So, our next speaker was going to have been John Morgan, and he told me he's going to be here, so something may have come up. So I'll just move right on down the list a little bit. A person that I consider a good friend to me, a great friend to Jerry Cooper. I helped him every chance he could. Always was good to me. The state treasurer from Tennessee, Steve Adams. Steve, come on up.
I need to hold on this handrail and make sure I don't fall down.
I never have followed Gary Morgan before in doing any kind of speaking. And I can tell you here today, this will be the last time I will follow him. He wants me to tell a story. Well, he's already told them all. But anyway. Jerry Cooper was quite an individual. There are not many like him, and I hope they throw away the mold after they made him. But he was certainly an outstanding fellow as far as I'm concerned. We've talked about what all he did for Motlow College. Today I rode in on this 4-lane highway. I didn't see any signs, but it needs to be the Cooper Memorial Highway. Now they do that quite a bit, and that thing may have gotten built without him, but they'd still be working on it. I can tell you that. But whatever Gary set his mind to do, he could come out a way to figure it out and get it done. Dr. Torrance was talking about Gary and his ability to always come up with a solution. I've got a little story back during. Well, I shouldn't bring this up, but I will. Back during the times when there was a brief discussion going on about an income tax in this state, we were trying to pass a budget. And to pass a budget, you estimate your expenditures, and then you decide how much you're going to spend. Well, Tennessee, we have to pass a balanced budget by the Constitution, and we were $20 million or some relatively small number out of balance. But the legislature, both senators and House members, ran around there for 3 days wringing their hands about how to balance this budget. Nobody would back off what they wanted to spend. And sure enough, we spent 3 days sitting there basically just looking at one another. And one day Cooper, he came up with this idea. He said, well, nobody wants to decrease what they want to spend. Why don't we just raise the revenue estimate? It was that kind of intellect that is what has made Tennessee so great today. So the constitutional officers at the time were heavily involved in making those revenue estimates, and it took us about 15 seconds to raise the revenue estimates by 0.5% to get $20 million, and we got to leave that place. I could go on and on about stories about Jerry Cooper, the way he used to drag his heels and down the floor, and you could hear him popping. He'd sound like a walking horse coming 25, 30 feet away. And the way he always greeted people. Sweetheart, what have you done for me today? I mean, and that's the way he generally greeted me. But anyway, all of you know about Jerry Cooper. You wouldn't be here today. This is a nice crowd. Jerry Cooper, as far as I know, was a good family man. Jerry Cooper was an excellent state representative of this district. You're never going to have anybody do as much for the people in this district as Jerry Cooper did. But that's just my opinion. But I do know one thing for sure. He was my friend, and he's as good a friend as I'll ever have. The way I measure friends, I learned, well, at least I was taught this at an early age. Everybody has acquaintances, everybody has friends, but the way you figure out who a true friend is, you get in a ditch at midnight and it pouring down rain, and you call somebody and see who come and get you. If he'll come and get you, he's a true friend. Well, Jerry Cooper would come and get you. That's the kind of guy he was. Thank you.
Since John Morgan didn't get to make it today, I do have a good John Morgan story. I think he would have told it if he'd have been here. But after John became the comptroller, and his office was right up there on the Capitol, and his computer was sitting there on the desk, and Cooper loved to slip in there when John was out and gone somewhere. He'd turn that computer on, and he'd write him little notes on there. "Sweetheart, I love you. I'll see you soon." And John would come in here, this is on his computer now. "Lord have mercy, sweetheart." I don't know why he called everybody sweetheart. I got to wondering about it there for a while. I didn't know. I said, "I've spent a lot of time with you, sweetheart." But anyway, he was certainly, most of y'all know that when Ned Ray got to know Jerry Cooper, he just loved him, and all he could do was call him Little Cooper. "Little Cooper, come on, Little Cooper." And for y'all that knew Jerry very well, y'all knew the nickname that Jerry had for Ned. And he would just call it to him. And I say, "Jerry, that's the governor. That's no way for you to be talking." He said, "Oh, he don't care, Little Cooper." Okay. But he didn't care. He said what he's thinking. If he thought it, he said it. So, which a good deal. So, anyway, another one of the people that always really helped Jerry Cooper out and helped him with budgets and stuff, with all the board of regents and all this, it was Dale Sims. Dale was always there to help Jerry move through things. And so Dale was the vice chancellor of finance for the Tennessee Board of Regents, and a great friend to Motlow and Jerry Cooper. Dale Sims would come up. Hang on, don't fall.
I won't. Following Gary and then Steve Adams is a tough job too. They've already taken most of what I know, which was not very much to begin with. But the "what have you done for me today, sweetheart?" First time I met him, I walked into his office and he said, "How you doing, sweetheart?" I looked behind me. I thought maybe somebody walked in behind me. Wasn't sure what was going on. So figured out after some period of time that was really a term of endearment. So. As I was coming down here today, well, really yesterday, I was thinking about Jerry, and somebody's already alluded to Snow Day. So I thought, I ought to bring a prop. So hopefully this isn't just a white T-shirt. It's Snow Day, 2007. Jerry and our relationship, and I'll try to make this short, it was a great relationship. I was state treasurer largely because Jerry Cooper was the first person I called. Steve will tell you this: you're a constitutional officer, you're calling legislators, meeting with them. Some of them will say, "Well, who else is running?" "Well, I'll get back to you later." I talked to Jerry. Jerry said, "I'm with you. I'm with you, sweetheart." As a matter of fact, what he said. "Let me know what I can do for you." Those are the kinds of things that you never forget, and you can never do enough for somebody that's with you in that way. My role in Snow Day was always, probably in April or May, I'd get a call from Jerry and he'd say, "Snow Day's coming up. I need you to do some work and predict the hottest, worst day in the summer." Now, I think I did a pretty good job. I mean, I've seen Snow Day participants. Do we have any out there? Pretty hot days. I tried to go with high humidity too, but that was just Jerry's sense of humor about bringing people together in the middle of the year. This is an opportunity, folks, to get to know one another outside the workplace. Where Gary was just finishing up, and I'll finish up with this piece of it, and maybe it was Steve said this. Jerry would meet you, and he would say, "What have you done for me this morning, sweetheart?" Thinking about that on the way down, my wife, every good idea in my house comes from my wife. Let's make that really clear. I was talking to her about this, and she said, "Well, what would you do?" And I said, "Well, Jerry's a good friend. Jerry loved Warren County. Jerry loved this area. Jerry loved Motlow. Those are things. Jerry loved the people. Jerry loved the students. He knew what the students' opportunity for higher education would mean." In talking with my wife on the way down, what we want to do is pledge to meet on a dollar for dollar basis contributions to Jerry's scholarship up to $1,000. So math is not my strongest point, but if we can get 50 people to do $20 a piece, you're going to get in my pocket pretty deep. So I'll leave you with that challenge, I guess, Gary. I don't know, Dr. Turner, I hope we've done okay with that. I'm surprising you a little bit with it, but want folks to think about that. Think about what Jerry meant to you. Think about the students, what they mean to you, and then decide what you can do for Jerry. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. I appreciate it. I got a little bit off track. So, you know, if this was a normal time of year, today would be the day for snow day. It was always the weekend that Tennessee played Florida. And Jerry Cooper and I started planning this way out there somewhere. And we need to go up to Knoxville, watch a game somewhere. I never went to Florida to see them. One time Jerry did, but I never did. But, I mean, snow day was a big deal for Jerry. This is Jerry Cooper. Sweetheart, come to see me. I got to talk to you about something. Okay, Jerry, I'll be there. He said, when I got there, he said, listen, I've got this idea. We need to have some kind of annual event here in McMinnville to help sponsor and promote Motlow College, because all these folks would come down. I said, well, Jerry, what are you going to call it? He said, I want to call it Snow Day. I said, what in the world does Snow Day mean? He said, oh, Gary, come on. When the kids get snowed out of school, they don't have to do anything that day. They don't have to take any tests, don't have to do anything. So we'll have Snow Day, and nobody has to do anything. Just show up and have a big time. And I'm telling you, Snow Day was a big time. And Jerry made sure of that. You folks played a little golf, and the rest of us just stood around, told stories. Most of them were lies, probably. But anyway, it was Snow Day. So one other thing, too, we still have a few of Snow Day collectible shirts. And we have some here, and Brenda got them somewhere. If you could find one of those shirts that fits you and you want it, take it home with you. And put it on and smile and say, hi, Jerry. And he'll say, hey, sweetheart. But that was a big deal to him, Snow Day. And it was kind of a big deal to all you folks that showed up every year. And we had a whole lot of fun with it, and he had fun with it. I was worried about what his next project might be once we got Snow Day going. But anyway, again, thank all y'all for being here today. And let me flip over and get back on course. The next speaker is someone that I don't know why he put up with Jerry Cooper, because he picked on him constantly. Always did. But he just stayed right there. And that's Pat Miller. Pat was the executive assistant to Lieutenant Governor Wilder, and he came right on up through the ranks too. He became the senior policy advisor for Governor Bredesen, and he had a lot of good experience, and he led Jerry along and helped him out a whole lot. So at this time, if y'all would welcome me, Pat Miller. Pat, come on up.
All right. Jerry kind of dealt with me a little differently than he did the rest of them. Well, first of all, I want to thank Gary Morgan for putting this event together. I think it's a true honor to be asked to speak about my friend Jerry Cooper. But his words are burning in my head, too. They weren't the same words. He always told me, don't mess this up, sweetheart. A little more colorfully, but... And so I'm going to try not to mess this up. I got to know Jerry when I worked for Lieutenant Governor John Wilder. Jerry and Governor Wilder had a long, complicated, and fascinating relationship. But I'll leave that story to another day. Gary told me to tell funny stories. So, Jerry had a reputation in the Senate for being a gremlin. To put that in context, and for y'all that aren't familiar with 1984 Steven Spielberg film, according to Merriam-Webster, a gremlin is a small, mischievous gnome that causes error and malfunction in his surroundings. And that pretty much described Jerry Cooper in the Senate. I remember one time early in the Sundquist administration, Jerry introduced a bill creating a license plate honoring the Jaycees, who were near and dear to his heart. Unbeknownst to the administration, Jerry had actually passed that bill the previous year. So they were confused. They didn't know what to make of it. The language tracked verbatim what the law said. So Governor Sundquist's legal counsel, Hardy Mays, called the House sponsor of the bill, Matt Kisber, and said, Matt, what's going on with this? And he said, Cooper brought me that bill. I'm not sure what he was trying to accomplish with it. So I'll give him a call and check into it, see what he has to say. And Matt called Jerry, and Jerry said, call back up there and tell him I said, welcome to Nashville. I was just checking to see if they were watching. And Jerry later, on another occasion while he was running for Congress, the Nashville lobbyists were kind of sitting on the fence. There are a few of them in the back of the room, probably some of them that were sitting on the fence, about contributing to Jerry's campaign. After all, they didn't have any interest in issues before Congress. So Jerry addressed this by sending a fundraising letter to all the Nashville lobbyists. And he asked one question: what do you call a person who loses the 4th District congressional race? The answer: chairman of the State Senate Commerce Committee. That kind of knocked a few people off the fence. So Lieutenant Governor Wilder was the presiding officer of the Senate, but Jerry operated in the Senate. Jerry was a master of the Senate. Jerry was chairman of the Senate Commerce Committee and chairman of the Joint Fiscal Review Committee, 2 of the most powerful committees on the Hill. Whenever Governor Wilder faced a particularly hard issue, he would go to Jerry, and Jerry'd resolve it. When the powerful House Speaker Jimmy Nafee needed something done in the Senate, he would call on Jerry Cooper, and he referred to Jerry affectionately as the House Senator. Jerry also spent a great deal of time in Nashville fighting for people who needed their voices heard in Nashville, whether it was kids at Camp Discovery or securing an appropriation for Motlow State. Jerry felt passionate about making their voices heard. On a personal level, Jerry was great to me. I was appointed by Governor Wilder to serve on the Tennessee Regulatory Authority. The next week, my confirmation resolution passed the Senate, and then it got stuck in a House committee for months on end. We were growing close to the end of session, about a week left. I was running out of time, so I went to see Jerry. He seemed energized by the opportunity to get involved. And the next day, he showed up uninvited to the governor's leadership breakfast. He asked me to leave the room. I don't know what he said that morning, but 2 days later, my confirmation resolution passed the House unanimously. And that's the kind of guy Jerry Cooper was. Later, I got to work with Elisa Cooper at the Tennessee Regulatory Authority. Lisa was the best. She ran that agency the same way Jerry ran the Senate. You can see where he got it. She employed a combination of relationship building, personal charm, and sheer force of will to accomplish great things for me and for that agency. As a result of working with Lisa, I spent more time with Jerry. But spending time with Jerry and Lisa wasn't just hanging out. The only way I can describe it, it was a Jerry Cooper experience. If it was snow day, if it was an afternoon at Rock Island, or a Saturday afternoon with Gary and Jerry watching a UT football game, it was an experience. Once I took my 10-year-old son Patrick down to watch the UT Kentucky game. I think Ward was there. And Jerry and Lisa had just bought a new four-wheeler. And my son mentioned, I love riding four-wheelers. And so Jerry, Lisa, and my son spent the entire afternoon riding that four-wheeler in the creek behind their house. I was afraid I was going to have to take somebody to the hospital. They were crazy. But that's an experience my son will never forget. They were bigger than life. They were, every time you spent time with Jerry Cooper. Another time, Jerry invited us to bring the family down to Warren County to cut our Christmas tree. After cutting the tree, he gave us a tour of the mountain. And then I think we met every person in Warren County. It was an experience my family will never forget. So let me say thank you, Jerry. I'm a better person for having you and Lisa in my life. Thank you for what you did for me. And finally, I hope I didn't screw this up, sweetheart.
I tell you, I need to personally thank each of you speakers because you took a lot of pressure off of me. I was the only one that was going to screw this thing up. So y'all have helped me out, and I appreciate it. So I got to tell you one more real quick John Wilder story. It's so fun. We used to, when I was working for Gentry, we'd be down in the plaza every morning having coffee and stuff, and John Wilder would always come around and join us. And he talked about Jaybird. And I mean, I heard about Jaybird forever. And finally I asked Gentry, I said, is Jaybird his kid or something? Gentry said, oh no, Gary, that's an airplane. I said, he talks about it like it's human. He said, no, that's his airplane. And so he did fly he'd fly back and forth West Tennessee. But another time, I forgot, some senator had passed away up in East Tennessee, and John Wilder was going to get Jaybird out of the garage and go up there. And so Jerry Cooper called me, and this was the strangest conversation I ever had. I don't think it even started out with sweetheart. He said, I need you to do something for me. I said, what is it, Jerry? He was so serious. He said, I need you to plan my funeral. I said, what do you want to plan your funeral for? He said, because I'm crazy enough, I'm going to get in that plane with John Wilder and fly to East Tennessee. I may not make it back, so get all this stuff planned out for me. I said, well, Jerry, thank you so much. This is a project you've never given me before. But he went, and Jerry said he went out to the airport when John Wilder dropped Jaybird in, and he pulled up, and Jerry was standing out there beside the runway, and he said, John Wilder reached over and shoved the door open and said, jump in, Jerry. And said, he jumped in and they took off. He said, what am I doing here? So, but, that's just the way it was. I'm sure that probably somewhere along the way, he said to John Wilder, sweetheart, do you know how to fly this plane? That's after he's out up and going. But anyway, that's just another one of those stories. So this next person that's going to come up here, I had the good privilege of meeting back about somewhere in the early 70s. He was out campaigning with Buddy Perry, and that's when I was working in radio. He came in the radio station one day and said, would you consider just running a press release for Buddy Perry? And I said, well, sure, come on in. I said, would y'all like to for me to interview you live? And Billy said, would you do that? I said, yeah, come on in. So we went in there and sat down, and I just started talking, and we had a great interview, and they loaded up and went on back. But that was my first meeting of Billy Rigsby, and of course, during Jerry's campaign, we had Billy Rigsby around with us a lot. He helped us out a bunch down there in Franklin County. And Jerry got elected, and 6 years later, he's running for state representative. And it was on his 40th birthday he got elected to state representative. Billy, you remember that? I remember it was in front of your office. You had that blazer or something. You climbed up on top of it and gave your speech from up there. I thought sure you was going to fall off and hurt yourself. But Billy Rigsby was one that he wasn't just a friend. He was like a brother to Jerry and I both. He always took care of everybody. That's just the way he did things. So and I've always appreciated that friendship. Billy, come on up here and tell us about Jerry Cooper.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Gary Morgan, Motlow College, and all the people connected with Motlow, and all the friends of Jerry Cooper and his family. And I would like to just let's have a moment of silence for Jerry Cooper. Thank you so much. Jerry was as everybody said, an unbelievable individual. I met Cooper and Gary. I met Gary first, and then I met Jerry while Buddy Perry was running for Congress. And Jerry gives me a check for $1,000. I was like, yes. Carry the check back to the office, and I look at it, and it's a corporate check. So I had to call him and say, Jerry, we can't take the check. You're going to have to take it back. So he said, okay, I'll write you a personal check. So anyway, he gave Buddy Perry $1,000. We lost the congressional race. And approximately a couple of years later, Jerry calls me and says, I'm running for state senate. Will you help me? And I said, sure, Jerry, I'll be glad to. So several times, Gary and Jerry showed up at my office for different appointments and different senior citizens meetings and stuff. One particular day, they were late. And most of the time, they were never late. So they pull up at my office, and I go out. I was madder than a hornet. I said, where have y'all been? And Gary said, well, it's a long story. We started to Winchester, And when I got in the car with Jerry, we heard this click, 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 and we thought Ernest Crouch had put a bomb in Jerry's car. So we pulled off to the side of the road and all got out of the car and looked under the car, opened the trunk, and looked at the back tail light, and the blinker was on. That's what I had to put up with. So, of course, we went to Senior Citizens, and they were waiting on us to get there, and it was a hit. That was just one of many, many times, and I won't go into all the others. But Gary, you did mention when Jerry was elected to the state senate, and you left me out of that story. When we went to, Cooper calls and says, I don't know where the Capitol is, can you and Gary take me to Nashville? So we go to Nashville and go to Governor Wilder's office, and sure enough, it's just like Gary said, dark office, lamp over the desk, and I think it was Senator Wilder. No, maybe it was John Wilder. No, Lieutenant Governor Wilder. Who was it, Pat? I don't know. I'm confused. He'd say, Governor Wilder, glad you got elected, Jerry. Senator Wilder, glad you got elected, Jerry. I'm like, Gary and I are sitting in the corner, and I looked at Gary and I said, Gary, this guy is one heartbeat away from the governor's seat. What are we doing here? That's the true story. Anyway, Cooper, I can't say enough. I know there's been a lot said about the roads and everything that he has accomplished, and of course he stayed on their case day in and day out until they were accomplished. He never gave up. He was, like the little mouse in the milk. He kept churning until he got buttered, and then he got out of the trap. So thank y'all all for coming. This is a very heartfelt moment for our friend, and it's just been a great experience, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I've got a lot of other stuff to say, but I won't say it today. But thank you so much. Thank you, family.
Well, Billy, I'd forgot about the bomb in the car till just now, but I will tell y'all really what happened there. Of course, I told you I was getting paid 50 cents an hour, but I got all the hours I wanted. We'd start out early and stay late. And I think Jerry and I, this was one morning early, we was headed down somewhere, and we got in the car and started down the road there. And I was probably about half asleep, and he was too. And just all of a sudden we was hearing this poop. And Jerry was very solemn. He said, Gary, do you think there's any way Ernest would put a bomb on this car? I said, oh, crap, Jerry, what are you talking about? He said, what is that? I said, I don't know. So I was holding on to the keys. I was trying to figure out what was clicking. And I thought, Jerry, that ain't going to happen. Well, he kept on. He talked me into it. Maybe it is happening. So I just bailed out of the car and just left him sitting there and went around, and I saw it was the blinker. I said, Jerry, the blinker's on. He said, oh, is that what it is? Yeah, Jerry, he ain't going to blow us up. So, but that's just one of those days. Billy, thank you for reminding me of that one. This next speaker we got coming up here probably had more influence on Jerry Cooper than any other political person in the world. Jerry Cooper and I didn't know much about politics that we didn't learn from Stanley. But anyway, if we could this time, Stanley, if you'd come up and give us a brother-in-law story, sweetheart.
Well, we've reminisced a great deal about Jerry Cooper. Jerry Cooper and I first met when he was 10 years of age. He was a golf pro, or a caddy, at the McMinnville Country Club, which was located close to their home at that time. And he was making anywhere from 25 cents to 50 cents a trip as he carried the bags for the golfers in that little club there. First time I met Jerry Cooper, Pat and I were dating. Both of us were in school at MTSU. We come to J.W. and Fiona Cooper's house, and I was introduced to her parents and introduced to Jerry Cooper. Jerry Cooper was 10. Jerry and I have spent a lot of time together over the years. I grew up much because of Jerry Cooper. Jerry Cooper was very mature at even age 10. He worked hard and did a lot of good things. Jerry Cooper, and I remember many things about Jerry Cooper. One of the things I remember as much as anything, and that was his love for UT football and what all it entailed. We made a point to go to a UT football game every year in some time or the other. Most of the time, Pat and I are both graduates of Vanderbilt, and we'd always have to go to the UT and Vanderbilt football game. And of course, UT always gave Vanderbilt a good whipping, so to speak. But there was one time we went to Knoxville, Tennessee, and Jerry had he was already in the Senate. I was out of the house. He had a T-shirt, and he showed it to Pat as before the ball game. And the T-shirt, pardon the expression, the T-shirt had on it, "What a day." Now the deal was that whoever won the ball game, the other one had to wear it. And of course, Jerry was absolutely sure that UT was going to give Vanderbilt a licking, and Pat was going to have to wear that shirt. And we were going out to eat after the ball game, and sure enough, for pardon the expression, how this happened, I don't know, but Vanderbilt won the ball game. Vanderbilt won the ball game, and then, but Jerry, being Jerry, he kept his promise. He put that T-shirt on, and he wore that T-shirt for the next 10 or 12 hours and didn't take it off. And he loved the shirt, and he always loved his sweet sister, Patricia Ann, and he called her Tricia Ann, and never called her anything but that. But you know, I miss Jerry Cooper. We all miss Jerry Cooper. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Stanley. You're partly responsible for Jerry Cooper. You know that, don't you? All the good stuff about him came from you, probably. But Jerry was a great guy, and he would always try to help anybody any way he could. That was just what he was made of. So, Stanley, thank you so much for being here and sharing this with us today. This next young man that I got to know while he was out campaigning too, he decided he wanted to be a senator like Jerry Cooper. And I told him he'd have to do something with his hair because Jerry didn't have that much. And so, but anyway, Eric Stewart decided to run for the seat, and he won that. And he was always coming to see Jerry, wanting some advice and stuff. And let me tell you, Jerry always had advice for you. Whether you wanted it or not, he'd give it to you. But Eric was always around, and he tried to carry on the tradition and do a lot of things that Jerry did and just follow it up. And Jerry always appreciated that, Eric, how good you was. So if you, sweetheart, if you got any stories you'd like to tell, come on up here.
I said a long time ago, never, never again will I stand up and give another speech, but for Jerry Cooper, I will. You know, I had a little different relationship than everybody else did with Jerry. I'm the one who has the distinction of coming behind him. So you can imagine the shoes I had to fill. Everybody knows the shoes I had to fill. The good thing about it is I didn't have to do a whole lot because he'd already done everything. So, you know, Jerry was just as everybody said. I mean, he loves the state of Tennessee. He loved his community. He loved Motlow College. But my time and my conversations with Jerry, you know, I know it's hard to believe, but they weren't really about politics. They really weren't about policy. They weren't, you know, after I got there, Gary, they really weren't about advice on what to do. He had been there before. He knew that you just kind of had to handle it the way that you had to handle it. Our conversations were about his family, about my family, about Motlow College for absolute sure. I can promise you that the helicopter story is 100% true. I promise you, because I had it numerous times. I had that conversation with him. So, and you could never tell him, you know, Jerry would come up with some harebrained ideas for Motlow, okay? They're at least what we thought were harebrained. Like a satellite place in Smyrna, that's a long way away. I think there's one there now. You know, so I wouldn't give up on that helicopter too quick. But, you know, those were the conversations we had, mostly about families and hey, how you doing? He had been there. He knew how hard you had to work. He knew how big this district was. He knew, as his families knew, what my family was going through back at home. And it was tough a lot of times. But anytime you called for the first thing that you get out of Jerry is some smart comment, excuse my French, but that's what it was. Second thing he'd always ask, how's Judy and the kids? Last thing he'd always say is, bye, I love you, sweetheart. And it didn't matter whether it was talking about Sally and Motlow, or Elisa getting her doctorate, or nursing with Holly, or remodeling a house and grandkids with Faith. And then, of course, Lisa and how hard she worked and what she did at TRA. That's what, in my time, that's what Jerry wanted to talk about. He was a true friend to me. He's a true friend to everybody. There's a true friend to him that if I don't say something, Jerry's going to frown on me. That doesn't get enough credit when he should get it, and that's Gary Morgan. If Jerry Cooper was the heavy. He was the guy that made things happen. Gary Morgan's the one that carried the water. And they were a team. They were partners. Jerry Cooper never had a better friend in this world than Gary Morgan. And our entire community is better because of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. One thing that I would like to say that always impressed me about Jerry Cooper and his political life is what I wish we had about 20 or 30 Jerry Coopers somewhere in Washington right now, because it wasn't Republicans or Democrats. I mean, Jerry was a Democrat, but he knew how to reach across the aisle and get the support of the Republicans too. And I can remember so many times when Janice was working at this for Van Hiller at the time. Your office was there in Tullahoma. If we was going down to Fayetteville or anything, he'd always want to stop and go in and visit with Janice and run something by her and get her opinion. But Jerry, like I say, he had Don Sundquist, loved Jerry Cooper. I mean, it was just hanging right in there with Jerry. And one thing that Steve had talked about back in the day, when Sundquist was just about to finish his term as governor, the budget was in a mess. And all across the state, they were looking to pass a income tax. And Tennessee just did not want that. And John Bragg had pushed that for years. And everybody kind of thought it was about time. But Governor Bredesen was going to walk into a major budget deficit if something didn't happen. So Jerry and Senator Claiborne got together, and I don't know which one came with the idea, probably Jerry. I could just hear him now, let's just pass a 1 cent tax increase. And I think, oh my goodness, Jerry. I said, well, 1 cent, that ain't that bad, is it? But I forgot how much money it raised. But he and Senator Claiborne went to work, and they worked, and they called, and they spent time and time and time, but they passed a 1 cent sales tax increase, and Governor Bredesen walked into some surplus. He had it made. I don't know if he ever really realized what all Jerry Cooper had done for him, but Jerry didn't care if he realized it or not. He did what he wanted to do, so we was just proud of him. So, but he looked across, and he just do whatever it takes to get the job done, to get it done the right way. So, and I know Janice knows that too. She came along. She's bit followed along as a state senator and had to listen to some of the Jerry Cooper stories all of her life too. So, Senator, if you come up and share your Jerry Cooper story, and you don't have to say anything about sweetheart.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you all for being here. This is a good snow day, and I think Jerry would be certainly proud of this. But what reminds me of everything we've been listening about Jerry, it's kind of like the saying they have on the mountain. If there's a problem, there's a solution. If there's no solution, there's no problem. And there's a lot of profound wisdom in that. And Jerry knew that, though. He looked at everything, never looking at the problem. He was looking at the solution, because he did recognize what was good for our district and what was not. My relationship with Jerry, though, goes back to the early 90s, when I was about as apolitical as anybody could be, and I ended up running for alderman in Tullahoma and winning. My son reminded me, you didn't carry a single precinct. And I said, no, but I want enough to come in second. And so it was a 2-person race out of 6 candidates, and that's when I began to know Jerry some, and I was invited to a fundraiser for Jerry Cooper. Now, I had never been to anybody's fundraiser. This one was over at a hotel in Manchester. And my husband and I, Temple and I, went to the fundraiser, and I think it was a whopping $25. So that was my first political contribution. There would be more later. There would be lots more later. But Jerry was always busy working for what was best for the district, and for Warren County, of course, his heart was here. And then when he ran against Van Hillary, when I was the district director for Van Hillary, we got to debate each other on the campaign trail. If Van Hillary was in Washington and there was a speech that had been a debate or whatever that was been scheduled in the district. So we even got to know each other better, and we became closer friends. Because Jerry was not ever a spiteful person or a hateful person or whatever, he was a very caring person. He enjoyed people, and he enjoyed doing what was right. And even Jerry, I think, introduced him to my favorite socialist in Warren County, Bill Zeckman. And so Jerry was able to work with anybody, everybody, and he wanted to do the best for the people and for this area. So when he was the senator, and then he got a little tired of Coffee County, and he made sure at the next redraw, he drew us out of his district. And so we had Tommy Burks, and Tommy Burks and I became good friends too, because Tommy, there could not be a nicer guy, and to serve with Charlotte later in the Senate. So things that some of us don't ever expect to do or expect to be part of, we need to make certain that we are building those relationships along the way, as Jerry Cooper did. And one thing that I think was especially telling with Jerry, though, was I went to visit him in the nursing home when he was recuperating, and he knew that someone was coming to visit him. So when I went in there, he was dressed in some nice pajamas, and he had a quilt across his legs. He had his hair combed, and I walked in, and he said, "They told me a dignitary was coming to see me." He said, "It's just you." And I said, "Yeah, just us chickens, Jerry." And we sat, and I had some issues. I was working in Nashville, and of course this has been very recently. Jerry Cooper had a lot of influence forever in Nashville, Tennessee, and don't anyone should dispute that. But when I sat down, I thought, well, I'm gonna ask Jerry some advice. There was a couple things I was working on. And I said, "Jerry, this issue, tell me who I can trust. Tell me who I shouldn't trust. Tell me what you would do." And he gave me an answer just like that. He's sharp as a tack, and he told me exactly what he would do. And he said, "And don't you dare trust this one. He's not a trustworthy person, but you trust this one." And I said, "Okay." And then there was another issue, and I brought that before him, and he said, "Yeah." He said, "You know, I've been thinking about that one too. I haven't really made up my mind on how we need to go at that one. Can I get back with you?" I said, "Absolutely." But that was the thing about Jerry. Whenever I needed his help as an alderman or as the district director in a congressional office or when he was our senator, if Jerry could help, he told you, yeah, and then you could take it to the bank. He was going to do exactly what he said he was going to do. If he couldn't, he would tell you why. And it was always a legitimate reason, and it was never anything he didn't want to try, because he helped so many people in more ways than we'll ever know. But he was always the man that I told people, I said, "Listen, I trust Jerry Cooper as much or more than I trust most folks in Nashville, even now. Because Jerry, he would tell me yes and why, and he would say no and why. And you can't ask for any more than that." But Jerry, when I was talking to him that day, and we visited for about an hour, I didn't want to tire him, and I said, "Well, Jerry, I've got to go. I've got to get back. Temple's working on the farm," and I told him I'd come out and help. And he said, "You tell Temple." I said, "Hello. Hey, by the way, do you have any blue books?" And I said, "Well, Jerry, I thought you might want to know. So, you know, they're yellow this year, but I brought a case. They're out in the car." And I got the gentleman there at the nursing home to go and help me get the case of yellow books. And I took them into Jerry, and showed him the new yellow book and whatever. He said, great, great. A week later, he called me back and he said, Janice, I need another case. And so he was giving out more yellow books there from his room than most folks were giving out other places. So Jerry was still doing what Jerry loved to do. And I'll close just by saying this because it's something that I've shared with many, but my husband Temple wrote in the margin of his Bible years ago a quote he'd heard from somebody. It said, the world rewards accomplishments, but God rewards relationships. And Jerry Cooper was rewarded. And he was a good friend and had a wonderful relationship with all of us. Thank you.
Well, I'll tell y'all, we're getting pretty close to done. I hope you haven't been bored today. It hadn't been one of those dry meetings. It's had a little fun to it. So we got just a couple more quick folks we need to talk to. And the next one is going to be a video. Have we got Congressman Cohen? Y'all may remember Steve Cohen. He served in the Senate with Jerry, but he since then has gone on. He serves in the U.S. Congress, and he couldn't make it down today, but he did cut us a video here, and we'll let y'all see it. So if we can just play this.
I miss Senator Jerry Cooper every day. He was not only my best friend in the state Senate, he was one of my best friends in life. Nobody was I more fond of than Jerry and Lisa. They were a team. They came up to Washington one time when we visited. It was the last time we were together. And they came up to encourage me to, which was not a real problem because I knew where Jerry stood, to help Motlow State. We did it. He put Motlow State first on about every agenda. He was the best senator by far. He was respected in both houses and on both sides of the aisle. He knew how to navigate the system to get things done for Warren County and for his Senate district and the things he cared about. He cared about folks that didn't have advantages, the disabled at the Jaycees camp, and he cared about his district. I miss Jerry. Not a day didn't go by that I don't think about him. He had a good heart, he had a good mind, and he loved people. He loved his family, he loved his community, and he contributed a lot. His efforts for Motlow State, for Warren County, for the district, for the state of Tennessee were unsurpassed during the time he served in the state Senate. I'm pleased to be able to join with John Morgan and others and express my regret at losing Jerry, but my appreciation for his friendship and his talents. I'm Congressman Steve Cohen, just Jerry's friend.
Thank you, Congressman Cohen. We appreciate it. And when we found out he couldn't come, he quickly got that video made for us and got it right down here to us. And I said, well, Jerry will be proud about this. So again, thank him too. So listen, next we got is the county mayor here in Warren County. And he and Jerry Cooper talk more than most people. He loved just to talk with Jerry. I remember when Jerry was at the nursing home, I spent a ton of time out there, but it seemed like every time that I was there, Jimmy Haley would come by and he and Jerry would get talking about something about Motlow College. I mean, he never quit talking about Motlow College. That's what made him happy, I reckon. So at this time, would y'all welcome me, the county mayor of Warren County, Jimmy Haley. Jimmy.
Well, Jerry sure loved a good party, and this is a celebration of life that I think we all can be proud of. And I know Jerry's looking down upon us and smiling as well. He loved this community. He loved the state. His leadership for these many years did leave an impact, not only in Nashville, in Washington, and of course his hometown that he loves so much. So there's not anything that we could say that would be even more appropriate enough to say, thank you, Jerry. Thank you for all that you have done for all of us over the course of your life. In stories for Jerry, and I've got several, but one funny one was that he called me up late one night, and he said, "I don't know where I am." And I said, "So where?" He says, "Well, I don't know, but I'm looking out a window, and I'm going to tell you what I see." and I want you to get in the car, and I want you to come down here and spring me from this joint. And I said, so where am I springing you from? He said, I don't know. They've got me holed up here. They say I'm sick, but I don't know if I'm that sick or not because I got enough sense to want to get out of here. So come and get me, come and get me, come and get me, sweetheart. And I said, Jerry, I just can't do that. And he said, well, I guess I'll call the next person on my list. But he did impact my life along with yours as well, and gave me advice nearly every day that he was able to. One of the things he said to me was, if you love your community enough and you want to make a difference and it means something to you as well as others, never take no for an answer. Be persistent, stay with it, and go the course, and you'd be amazed at what you can do. And so one of the things that's near and dear to Senator Bowling in my heart was the saving of our driver's license center. And so when all that was announced, he called me up and he said, you got to do something with your buddy Haslam. And I said, what? And he said, yeah, he's going to shut down your driver's license center. And if you let him do it, there'll be something next and something next and something next. You can't let that happen. And I said, well, I've got a plan. He said, well, share it with me. So he went over detail and he said, never give up. Wear them out. Go to every office, talk to everybody you possibly can. And he said, you can start with Jim Henry because you can trust him. And so Senator Bowling and I teamed up, and we didn't take no for an answer, and I think we wore everybody out 3 or 4 times before it was finally announced that we saved our driver's license center. And a lot of that came from his suggestions and advice. When we were pushing for the robotics center, and our Drive to 55 grant was laying on the governor's desk, and he was a little mad at me about the driver's license center, and he was just laying there, and Jerry called me up and he said, I don't know what you did for the governor, but you need to call your buddy up or call him out or something, because he needs to sign that $5.5 million grant to get us that robotics center. You know how important that is. And I said, okay. I said, well, I'm going to be at an ECD conference tomorrow. And he said, call him out in front of the crowd. So I kind of did, and guess what? The governor signed that grant the very next day. So we did it. And so that persistence always played out to our advantage. So I appreciate the advice that he gave and about the never giving up and never taking no for an answer. And so I wanted to do something from the legislative body and from the county executive's office. And I know there's going to be another proclamation, but I feel like there can never be enough proclamations for Jerry Cooper and for what he did. And so this is the proclamation that I wrote honoring my friend Jerry Cooper. Whereas it's only fitting to recognize the life and achievements of those remarkable individuals who have left their mark on their nation, their state, and their hometown. And whereas every community should show tribute to those whose legacy is a testimony to a dedicated life to public service. And whereas Jerry Wayne Cooper was born August 6, 1948 in McMinnville, Tennessee, to parents J.W. and Theonia LaFevers Cooper. And whereas Jerry Cooper was educated in the local school system, earned an engineering degree from the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, and then served his nation as a member of the Tennessee National Guard from 1970 to 1976. And whereas Jerry Cooper established a successful manufacturing business at Smart Station and was honored by the Small Businessman of the Year in 1983 by the U.S. Small Business Administration. And whereas Jerry Cooper served with distinction as the 14th District Senator in Tennessee General Assembly from 1984 to 2007, and was known for his bipartisanship approach to governance. Whereas Senator Cooper was recognized with many awards for his service to the state, including Legislator of the Year and Outstanding Senator of the Year. And whereas during his tenure with the General Assembly, Senator Cooper served as Chairman of Commerce and was instrumental in passing the lottery scholarship legislation as an investment in our children's educational future. And whereas Senator Cooper championed higher education throughout his life and was responsible for the creation of the Motlow campus here in McMinnville. And whereas Senator Cooper was a member of Alpha Phi Mu and Pi Kappa Alpha fraternities and served on both the Tennessee Technological University and Motlow College foundations, where he promoted the expansion of those campuses and many programs. Whereas Jerry Cooper was an active member of many organizations and rose to the state presidency of the Jaycees, where he was honored with Outstanding Young Man of the Year in 1984, and went on later to found Camp Discovery for children with disease. Whereas this distinguished individual placed service above self in so many aspects of his life and often sacrificed his own health and personal well-being in order to help others. And whereas Senator Cooper passed from this life on March 21st, 2020 at his home here, leaving his daughters Elisa, Sally, Faith, and Holly, along with other family members, to mourn this great loss. And whereas all of Warren County should show respectful appreciation as we memorialize a man whose legacy and achievements will live on for many generations to come. Therefore, be it proclaimed that I, County Executive Jimmy Haley, the legislative body of Warren County, and a very grateful community, hereby honor the memory of Senator Jerry W. Cooper and acknowledge his many contributions to our citizenry over the course of a robust life and a successful political career. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mayor Hill. I appreciate that. There's someone that'll be sitting up here looking back to the back. I'm not going to ask him to speak, but I do want to recognize him. A friend of Jerry Cooper's from Memphis, Tennessee, is Kirk Kirkland. He's a Jaycee that served as the legal counsel for the Tennessee Jaycees when Jerry was state president. But Kurt has been a friend of Jerry's for years, and when he found out about that, he said, I'm going to come up there today. I said, Kurt, I appreciate it. And I said, I know that Jerry Cooper would be so excited to know you came. Thank you for being here, Kurt. Certainly, we appreciate you so much. So, well, thank you. Let me just say this. We've had a lot of good stories. Is there anybody that we've left out that might have some story that you would like to share about Jerry Cooper? John Pella does? Okay, John Pella, come on up here.
You asked me to come.
Oh, yes, right. Come on up here, sweetheart.
Oh, me. Well, it's an honor to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity. I want to thank the family for the opportunity to stand at this event. I had the honor of being the last county executive in Warren County to serve with Jerry while Jerry was still in office. And 2006 was a very different time than what it is right now. 2006, everybody wanted to talk to you about when are we going to get jobs in our community. People were unemployed and they were struggling. You know, recently my wife and I, we were out of town and we saw a sign that said, if you're breathing, come in and apply. That wasn't the case in 2006. It was a very tough time. And Warren County needed a win. We needed a win in a bad way. And there are many stories that I could share about my time spent with Jerry. One very special story to me is I see many of our elected officials that were serving then, commissioners that are here with us today. Jerry called me up and he said, we have discretionary money at the state. And at that time, the senators were each getting $300,000. The representatives were each getting $100,000 to be distributed within their district. And Jerry called me and he said, find a place to put this money. And I know that there are a lot of people here today from within Jerry's district in different counties. And Jerry cared about them, but it's been mentioned today, Warren County was terribly, terribly special to Jerry. So when we came up with the totals that we had actually exceeded some of what our portion of that money should have been for Jerry's whole district. He found a way to make that work. But one of my first experiences as an elected official was to stand in our courtroom with county commissioners present and all of these organizations, be it volunteer fire departments, whatever kind of organizations that help feed the hungry, that help battered women, whatever it may have been, and we stood there for literally probably an hour handing out checks to organizations where I had volunteer fire departments come in the office and say, here are the keys to our building. We can't afford to keep our building open anymore. And Jerry helped us with that, okay? We also had a situation that we all worked on collectively where we had citizens in our county. For those of you that are from Warren County, we had citizens on top of Harrison Ferry Mountain that were going to neighbors' houses and they were filling up gallon plastic jugs of water and bringing them and storing them in their tubs so they would have water to drink. Because at that time, we were buying our water in Warren County from Cagle, Fredonia,
a neighboring county, and they had to shut the car wash down on top of Mount Eagle Mountain to have enough water to send water to Warren County. So we presented this problem, and it was presented to us that, well, yes, but you only want that water project because of higher dollar homes or whatever that are being built. Well, that may be the case, but we have people that are struggling that don't have water. Jerry, along with many other people certainly that were involved, and there's now a water tank on top of Harrison Ferry Mountain. The citizens of this county do not struggle now because they need water. And I might just add one more little quick story to that one. Charlie Curtis was in on that as well, and Charlie, a dear friend, and that's when Governor Bredesen was in, and there was supposed to be $1 million in the budget for that water project, and we were checking regularly to make sure before the budget was passed, and right before the budget was passed, Charlie called, along with Jerry, both people there together at Nashville. This money had got taken out of the budget. And Charlie Curtis, and for those of you that know Charlie, this is about Jerry, but Jerry was right there with him, and Charlie said, and I went in the governor's office and I raised more cane than a jack in a tin barn. A Curtisism, and Charlie did, but he, along with Jerry, and Jerry there with him, and they got the money put back in, and the water tank is on top of Harrison Ferry Mountain. Then,
Water pipeline to nowhere. Remember it well.
we have citizens benefiting from that, enjoying it today. And then, under the leadership of Dr. Apple, we started talking about something called mechatronics. And what is mechatronics? What is mechatronics? And how that started, and with Jerry's support of that, and the money that was raised with everybody working together. And I remember Dr. Apple being asked the question that she shared with me, why in the world is the McMinnville campus getting mechatronics over whether it be the main campus or some of the other satellite campuses? Why in the world? And Dr. Apple said, because they're the ones that raised the money, the seed money. And that was Jerry. That was Jerry that was involved in that. So many things that without Jerry's support, so many things that our county enjoyed that slowly began to bring us back because it was tough times and people needed jobs. And as a result of all these things happening, when we went to recruit industry, we had the mechatronics program, we had Motlow, the expansion at Motlow happened, the enrollment increased. Jerry called me and he said, we don't even have a place for our students to park the cars. They're parking in the grass. Get something done about the parking lot over there. We need the parking lot expanded. And with our road superintendent and others, and that happened as Jerry was supporting that. So things that I had the honor to see firsthand of how much Jerry loved Warren County. And I think about this a lot, and I hope this is okay to share because it really, it's not that Jerry, everybody knows how much Jerry loved his family, but I really feel like that probably you, as the people that were closest to him in the world, you guys probably got less of Jerry than anybody because so many people were pulling at him from so many different directions, and he was a giver, and he was always giving. So he was always gone to all these other places to take care of other people's problems. But gosh, he loved y'all. He loved y'all so much. But that's just who he was. He was a giver, and he loved to solve problems. He loved to solve other people's problems. And so it was an honor. I miss Jerry. The things that he did for this county, commissioners that are here, they know. They saw it firsthand. Things that were done behind the scenes, the general public will probably never know, you know, what Jerry truly did for his entire district, but especially for Warren County. And I got to see just a glimpse of it firsthand, and it was an honor. And I miss him. I know he loved you guys, and you should be very proud of who your daddy was, and I know you are. Thank y'all. Gary, thank you.
I've always been so proud of John Pelham, and why that is because he's from a little place out here just northern Warren County. It's a private school called DeBrell, and John and I both celebrate having go there. Thank you, John, so much. And I wish Dr. Apple could have been here because, you know, when she first introduced us to mechatronics, I mean, I remember sitting in a room one time, she was talking about mechatronics, and I was saying, mecha what? How do you spell that? And then finally, I studied enough, we got to spelling it. But I mean, mechatronics started in Tennessee, right here in McMinnville, and it went across the state. All the other workforce areas was wanting to have a mechatronics program. But Dr. Apple was on top of that constantly, and they got a lot of great recognition for the first community college in the state of Tennessee to have a mechatronics program. And we took off and did everything there, and just one thing led to another. The next thing we're talking about a robotics center, and it's right over here now too. And that's getting so much attention around the southeast United States. And it's one thing that's already been a result of that is a new Hampton Inn just across the way over there. There's a lot of people sending folks here to take some courses, needed a place to stay. So that's why they're building that hotel over there. Again, robotics, Motlow College in McMinnville, Tennessee. That's what it's been like. So again, thank y'all so much. I hope I haven't bored you to death today, but Jerry Cooper is somewhere right now with that little smile on his face, probably gnawing on a cigar, saying thank y'all. And but I thank you too for helping me honor the one guy that I consider my best friend in the whole wide world, Jerry Cooper. Thank y'all for being here. And we're getting ready to wrap up here in just a second, but there's one person in this crowd that I want to introduce, but he don't have to get up here and speak or anything. It's just my pride and joy. My son, Tyler Morgan's in here somewhere. Tyler, where are you? Stand up and wave at everybody. Oh, was he? Okay. So I didn't want him to go say, oh, man, I'm where my daddy's been today, and he's talked all day long. So anyway, thank you, Mark Rogers and Jean Ann, for being here, too. We really appreciate that. So thank you so much for helping us honor Jerry Cooper. And now we've got the very best we saved for last, and that is the current president of Motlow College, who is doing such a wonderful job in every aspect of it. Please welcome with me the president of Motlow College, Dr. Michael Torrance. Come right up here, sir. Come up here, sweetheart.
You know, you gotta make sure that he gets down the same way he came up, safely. We've heard quite a bit, and I'll have some closing remarks. But for Jerry's family, I want to just say some words that you can write them down. You can look at them later. The things that you've heard today, you've heard friend, you've heard supporter, you've heard about commitment, you've heard about selflessness, right? And then when you look around this room, you're seeing people from all over. They gave up their time today, paused whatever they were doing. Thank you, Mark. Paused whatever they were doing to show up. And as my granddaddy would tell me, your friends, your real friends, they show up. That's what they do for you. So everybody in here, friends of Jerry Cooper, family members of Jerry Cooper, thank y'all for showing up. We have a presentation of a resolution on behalf of Motlow State Community College and the Motlow College Foundation that's led by our senior team and some long-standing folks. And you know, when we talk about leadership and being connected in the community, people are not just their titles and tags, but everybody's leading from where they are. And we talk about that a lot at our institution. So thank you to the Motlow College Foundation and all of our Motlowians. Mr. Eugene London could not be with us today, so we're going to have some friends come up and read this proclamation. Mr. Mark Hutchins, who is our new AVP of the Motlow College Foundation, as well as Ms. Brenda Cannon, who's a trustee, will come and join me. And if the stage falls, it's because of me, okay? It's not them. You all come on up here and join me, please.
Yes. Sharon Bateman, would you please bring the resolution from the back, please? And Mark, if you would come over here and stand by this one. No, go back down.
Wherever you do.
Okay.
Miss Cannon's nickname is all kinds of things, but I've heard she's been called the underboss.
And Hilda, would you come, please? I want you over here behind me.
We're good. It's sturdy.
It's sturdy, but somebody has moved my gray folder. Has somebody moved my gray folder? Oh, Deborah has it. Maybe I didn't bring it up. I'm elated to be here because I consider myself to be a friend of Jerry Cooper. But prior to reading the resolution, all of our presidents were invited, and unfortunately they could not come, but they wanted to share remarks, and I want to read them. Dr. Sam Ingram said, "My experience with Jerry Cooper was as a fellow Motlow College trustee. I served with him on the executive committee for many years, and without a doubt, he was a true advocate for Motlow State. No was not an acceptable answer for him. He was always about, how can I assist getting this done for the college?" Dr. Art Walker said, "You know my sentiments about Jerry Cooper. His commitment to and support of Motlow College is unparalleled. Beyond that, I valued his friendship. Please convey my absence." And Dr. Mary Lou Apple said, "What do you need? What do you need at Motlow?" was a common greeting from Jerry Cooper. He not only loved Warren County and Motlow State Community College, but he spent his life working to make a difference to improve the quality of life of area citizens. So let's applaud our presidents. The resolutions, we have one for each daughter. Faith, would you come and stand beside Mark? And Mark is our new assistant vice president for what?
Corporate and foundation
Yeah,
services.
corporate and foundation services. Sally, you want to come and stand? Sally's my BFF. We met a long time ago. Where's the other one? Okay, I know. Yeah, Elisa, you want to? Are you gonna come? Okay, you're gonna sit right there. Well, Sharon, you go stand with Elisa. And Holly, you come and stand beside Dr. Torrance. Please. This resolution is being presented to the Cooper daughters, to the daughters of Jerry Wayne Cooper, and it reads, "Resolution to honor Jerry Wayne Cooper, former state senator and Motlow College Foundation trustee, for a life well spent in responsible public and community service. Whereas the Motlow College Foundation exists to serve the needs and priorities of Motlow State Community College, and its board of trustees is comprised of volunteer leaders from the college's 11 county service area who have a passion for student success, economic prosperity, and workforce development. Whereas Jerry Wayne Cooper, a Motlow State Community College champion and stalwart, modeled servant leadership throughout his life, giving tirelessly to Tennessee residents and having an indelible impact across the Motlow State Community College service area. Whereas Jerry Wayne Cooper was a loyal friend to Motlow State at the local and state levels for more than 30 years, serving as a foundation trustee for 25 years and a member of the executive committee. A state senator in the Tennessee General Assembly for 24 years, serving from 1985 to 2007. An entrepreneur and president of Cooper Manufacturing, Inc. in Warren County, Tennessee, which opened in 1973 and contributed greatly to the economic prosperity of the local economy and state by providing jobs to more than 70 employees. Whereas Jerry Wayne Cooper was committed to civic leadership, serving as state president of the Tennessee Jaycees in 1981 and officially opening Camp Discovery, a camp for children with mental and physical disabilities, for which the first camper hall is named in his honor, Jerry Cooper. Whereas Jerry Wayne Cooper was awarded multiple honors of distinction, including Outstanding Jaycee 1974, Outstanding Young Man of America 1975, Outstanding Young Men of Tennessee 1983, and Tennessee Legislator of the Year 1997. Whereas Jerry Wayne Cooper was an advocate for Motlow State and its mission by sponsoring legislation which garnered more than $18 million in funding to support the Motlow State McMinnville campus, its expansions and parking lots, Motlow State Fayetteville campus, the Don Sundquist Center for Advanced Technologies in Fayetteville, the Nursing and Technology Building and Library on the Moore County campus, as well as infrastructure and road improvements, which contributed to the educational attainment of local residents and the economic impact by providing jobs. Whereas Jerry Wayne Cooper was instrumental in assisting Motlow State in obtaining a Department of Labor grant to expand the mechatronics footprint in Smyrna and McMinnville, to obtain academic equipment and instructors, which had a total impact of $3.2 million. Whereas Jerry Wayne Cooper's memory will live in perpetuity by the naming of the Cooper Conference Room in the Markham Technology Center on the Moore County campus for his love, his loyalty, and his impact to Motlow State. Whereas Jerry Wayne Cooper is remembered as a father, a husband, a grandfather, brother, friend, public servant, jokester, leader, as well as a compassionate, progressive, respected, determined, helpful, generous, non-judgmental, and interesting individual. Whereas Jerry Wayne Cooper's life, his service, and dedication to Motlow State and the Motlow College Foundation will forever be cherished and appreciated, and he will be missed. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Motlow College Foundation and its Board of Trustees wish to express their sincere appreciation and gratitude for his life, his leadership, and contributions to Motlow State Community College, the 11-county service area, and the great state of Tennessee. Adopted June 18, 2020, Gary D. Morgan, Chairman, Board of Trustees, Motlow College Foundation, Michael L. Torrance, President, Motlow State Community College. Please present the daughters a resolution. Just lift it up. Somebody don't have faith. Go take it. No, just don't take faith. Would the Motlow College trustees please stand? Family, we love Jerry Wayne Cooper. Thank you. And at this time, Dr. Glass is not coming. You want to come? No, he doesn't want to come. Dr. Torrance is coming. Thank you for being here.
Well, today's been a great early morning, midday, and afternoon, and we can't thank you all enough again for coming. Thank you to the Cooper family, and extended family and friends. We appreciate your time and your continued commitment, not to Motlow, but to Jerry's memory. Okay? Let him live on in all of us. It's beautiful in the day, and it's a representation of his spirit. I hope you all take that with you. And although I never got to participate in Snow Day, I hope somebody starts it back up. Thank you all for coming. Please feel free to mill around and make sure you connect with people you haven't seen in a while. Thank you very much.